You may be wondering, if astrology can tell us something about our moment in history, then what does it say about today? If you happen to be an astrologer living in a cave with no contact with human affairs, you would look at the planetary alignments of today and think, things must be pretty weird out there. But you obviously don't need to be an astrologer to see that things are pretty messed up, that we have entered a profoundly difficult, dangerous, and strange moment in history. So what the heck is going on? Let's talk about it. First, an introduction. My name is Brian Alamana. I'm an astrologer and the founder and author at solariseastrology.com. This recording is the first of what I hope to become a series of episodes about the astrology of these times. If you have any thoughts or questions you'd like to share with me, please do so in the comments below, or you can visit my website at solariseastrology.com. So yeah, things are pretty weird, politically, socially, culturally, financially. What is going on? Well, there's a term that describes the kind of moment we are in and is the title I've given to this episode. That term is inflection point. An inflection point is a point of total divergence when, for example, a trajectory of events takes a sharp turn and there's no going back to the way things were. It's as if we are no longer living along the same timeline as before. It's as if all of our plans, hopes, and dreams, all of the supports and expectations we've built up over the years based on where we assumed we were headed, have all been shattered and the remaining pieces blown away. Where we are headed now is nothing like where we were headed just a few years ago, and the future is impossible to see, our vision heavily clouded by the daily bombardments of unexpected plot twists. But as strange and difficult as it all is, history is full of inflection points where the status quo was shattered and any concept of future stability was unthinkable. Over time, though, new ideas, new inventions, new communities, and a renewed will to transform the old world into something better all came rushing onto the scene. Humans are amazingly creative and resilient when the pressure is on. With everything that's going on in the world today, we could easily dive into any subject from an astrological point of view, whether the war in Iran, unrest in the United States, or AI turning culture into slop. I do plan to cover these subjects in future episodes, but for this first episode, I'm going to focus on the high-level astrological overview. Because the planets do give us some clues about our situation. The most significant planetary alignment of these times, of probably any of our lifetimes, both in terms of rarity and symbolic correlation to what's happening, is a mutual alignment of the three outermost planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. All three have recently changed signs, Uranus from Taurus to Gemini, Neptune from Pisces to Aries, and Pluto from Capricorn to Aquarius. As they change signs, they enter into what is called a major aspect with each other, forming alignments of 60 degrees and 120 degrees, alignments that carry special meaning in astrology. Astrologers, including myself, have been talking for a long time about this alignment of outer planets, and we could talk for days about what it all means, but I'll try to sum up my take on the essential meaning as best I can. Let's start with Uranus. At its essence, Uranus represents liberation, or awakening to freedom, which is a much more complex idea than it might seem at first. We tend to treat freedom as if its meaning is self-evident, as if it simply means no consequences for acting out any impulsive whim. But real freedom is very challenging to understand at a deep level. To paraphrase Nelson Mandela, I cannot be free if you are not also free. So that freedom for oneself requires caring about the freedom of others, no matter who they are or where they are. The phrase, "don't tread on me," has got to mean don't tread on anyone if it's going to mean anything. This is why Uranus not only represents ideals around liberty, but of groups coming together to fight for the freedom of those who have been denied it. Uranus erupts during moments of great revolution and reform, driven by the urge towards liberty. And it is a planet that is very important to the United States in terms of its symbolic meaning, its place in the U.S. horoscope, and its correlation with major historical events in American history. Right now, Uranus is transiting a very sensitive point in the zodiac relative to the horoscope of the United States. It's at the same point where it was during the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and World War II, but I'll be talking more about that in a later episode. Now, Neptune represents our shared unity, our highest spiritual aspirations, our dreams, and our delusions. It can therefore refer to delusional aspirations that appear to be spiritual or serving higher ideals, but are really serving a deceptive ideal, like the supremacy of a particular race or religion or cult leader. Neptune refers to martyrdom and sacrifice in the name of whatever aspiration is calling, whether an ideology like capitalism or patriotism, or simply the moral imperative to care for everyone equally. Neptune is the planet of dreams, linked to art, literature, and music. It's also the planet of escape into any form of addiction. It is that part of us that wishes to be unbound to time, form, and conflict. Where the imagination flies free, where we are lifted from the sufferings of being in a body, we find the realm of Neptune. Pluto represents transformation as the engine of evolution. As lord of the underworld, Pluto grabs us and takes us deep into the dark, unfamiliar, untempered realms of agony or ecstasy. Pluto is the deep, volcanic emotional fury that erupts when our soul can no longer stand our ego's defenses. Pluto is linked with the terror of facing death, as well as the fierce resolve to face it anyway. Pluto represents that which acts in secrecy, cloaked in benign costume, whether our own shadow, our untapped capacities for evil, hiding from our ego's fragile self-posturing, or the secretive strands of society, whether organized crime, human trafficking, or the hidden depravities of the rich and powerful. Pluto represents both degeneration and regeneration. It can refer to experiences that remake and rebirth us through a trial of darkness, converting fear to courage, grief to love, and rage to an unflinching commitment to justice. At its best, Pluto transforms lust for power into a relentless conviction towards love. So, we have Uranus, liberation, Neptune, spiritual awakening, and Pluto, evolutionary power. As outer planets, they represent concepts that are bigger than any of us individually, and every so often in history, they come together and take the wheel of humanity, so to speak, and drive us to the next stage of our collective spiritual development. We are now in just such a transition. For a historical analog, consider the great shift that took place under the Roman Emperor Constantine in the 4th century. Among his many accomplishments, many of them not very savory, Constantine achieved something unthinkable. He converted to Christianity and made that religion mainstream throughout the Roman Empire. The old, venerable pagan religions began to take a back seat to the more politically successful Christian religion. Indeed, the very foundational gatherings that established the Christian doctrines, known as the Councils of Nicaea, were instituted by Constantine. Beyond his radical religious reform, Constantine basically reinvented the Roman Empire, reforming the economy, the political system, the military, and even moving the capital from Rome to a city he named after himself, Constantinople, what is now Istanbul, Turkey. The Roman Empire had been struggling for an entire century, but with Constantine's ascendance, he lifted it back towards its former glory. It was enough to give the Western Roman Empire another century before it fell, while the Eastern Empire, based in Constantinople, flourished for another 1,000 years. Constantine's reign was a clear inflection point for not just the Roman Empire, but for the world. So what was going on in the stars that might correspond to such a major collective shift? Well, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto were all at a mutual alignment pattern of 60 and 120 degrees, the same as today. You can see the themes pretty clearly. Uranus's emphasis on freedom for Christians, along with radical social and political reforms, Neptune's spiritual aspirations in Christianity's rapid spread and moral passions, and Pluto's evolutionary drive and the deep, profound impacts this time period has had on human history. So let's look at another example. The end of World War II. Around the time of the Normandy invasion that turned the tide of war to the Allies' favor, the outer planets were again moving into alignments of 60 and 120 degrees, same as today. Once the war ended, Western Europe was reconstructed, the old monarchies completely decimated. The New World Order of Western liberal democracy began, giving us the modern world we live in today. It was, again, a moment of great Uranian reform, of Neptunian spiritual renewal, and profound Plutonian cultural transformation. It was another inflection point, and the world would never be the same. Jumping forward to today, we are again seeing our world wrought by major social, political, cultural, and technological shifts that will reverberate far into the future. The traditional liberal democracy that arose from World War II is now being challenged and forced to reckon with itself. A new globally organized form of authoritarianism is corrupting the foundations of civilization, which creates a terrifying possibility of collapse and the exhilarating possibility of renewal. And who knows what widespread changes are coming out of the disruption that is AI. The current inflection point is well underway and there is no going back. As to the future, my hope is that we will soon rediscover our solidarity. It is becoming increasingly clear that by dividing ourselves, we are weakening ourselves against the encroaching tyranny. It is vitally important that we learn to care for each other while respecting that we each see the world differently. I think there's hope in the starry symbolism when we consider the harmonious nature of the outer planet alignments and their simultaneous shift of signs. Uranus entering Gemini historically corresponds with radical documents asserting basic human rights. Neptune in Aries corresponds with fiery orations and new spiritual visions of moral engagement. And Pluto in Aquarius corresponds with the slow but inevitable grind of evolution towards humanitarian ideals. In future episodes, I will look at each of these planetary ingresses and show the historical correlations that drive home these themes. But no matter what time it is or what the state of the world is, we always have the choice to awaken to our own soul, to deepen into our own being and draw closer to the power of inner liberation, inner spiritual awakening, and inner evolution, which need not be bound to the fragile stability of the human-made world. And the journey we take to awaken our soul is enhanced when we share it with others on a similar path. Thank you for watching. Again, you can reach me at solariseastrology.com or leave your comments and questions below. You can also let me know what astrological topics you'd like me to talk about. Until next time, may the stars light your way.